The vast royal vessel of Velastra glimmered against the blackness of space, like a jewel hanging in the void. Inside, the corridors were filled with a soft hum, a rhythm of alien machinery that seemed alive. Humans had never seen anything like it before. Every surface gleamed with polished metal, and soft lights pulsed in calming colors along the walls. For Ryan Carter, a human diplomat and biologist, it was more than awe-inspiring. It was terrifying. He had been invited to the ship to meet the Princess of Velastra, Avalria, a young woman known across the Empire for her intelligence, pride, and unshakable confidence in her people's science. The Velastrans were a species that measured life in cycles, breeding cycles, learning cycles, even cycles of political favor. To them, the idea of breaking these natural laws was unthinkable. Ryan knew that he was about to challenge one of their most sacred beliefs. Avalria's throne room was enormous, a cathedral-like space that seemed too vast for any ordinary creature. She sat on a raised platform, her golden eyes scanning the human with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Her long silver hair shimmered like liquid light, and her posture radiated authority. Around her, a circle of Velastran scientists and advisors whispered in low tones, their faces a mixture of skepticism and anticipation. "You claim that humans can reproduce at any time?" Avalria asked, her voice sharp and precise. "That is impossible."
"Every species in this galaxy is bound by cycles."
"How could your kind violate the laws of nature?" Ryan held up his hands, trying to remain calm. He had anticipated skepticism, but the disbelief in her voice was stronger than he had expected. "It's not that we violate nature," he said slowly. "Our biology is flexible. Humans can reproduce year-round, but it's more than just biology. Emotions, bonding, and social choice all play a role. We are not slaves to cycles the way your species is." Avalria blinked once, then laughed, a sound that rang like chimes in the vast room. The laughter spread among the scientists, some of whom openly smirked at the human. "Ridiculous," she said. "You expect me to believe that your species is not bound by the most basic laws of life? You must be joking, human. Or lying." Ryan remained composed. He knew that laughter was the first reaction of disbelief in most intelligent species. "I am serious," he said. "I can show you evidence, medical records, Earth research, even statistics. Humans have evolved differently because we rely on intelligence and choice, not only instinct. That's our strength." "Evidence," Avalria repeated, leaning forward, her gaze piercing. "You speak of evidence. Then produce it. Prove to me that your kind can break what is natural." He nodded, knowing that she expected a kind of scientific proof, rather than argument. He explained his plan, outlining how he could show the Velastran scientists the hormonal cycles of humans, the lack of rigid breeding seasons, and the effects of emotional bonds on reproduction. The explanation was technical, but Ryan kept it simple, knowing that too much complexity could seem like trickery. The scientists around the room murmured among themselves. They had run tests on countless species, each of which obeyed nature's strict rhythms. A human breaking the cycle was, to them, absurd. Avalria's expression shifted from amusement to skepticism. "You expect me to allow this demonstration?" she asked. "Yes," Ryan said. "But it is not only about numbers and charts. Humans are different because we choose. We choose to bond, we choose to love, and that choice affects our biology. It is not a failure of nature, but an evolution beyond it." The princess leaned back, considering. Then, with a motion of her hand, she signaled her advisors to prepare the lab. Ryan was escorted to a bright room filled with delicate instruments and devices unlike anything he had ever seen. Velastran biologists watched as he prepared the first tests, his hand steady despite the tension. "Begin," Avalria said, her voice cold but curious. Ryan explained the first experiment. Using non-invasive methods, he demonstrated how human reproductive hormones fluctuate, not in rigid patterns but in response to social and emotional factors. The Velastran scientists gasped at the readings. The patterns did not match any known cycles. There were small spikes, slow rises, subtle shifts, but nothing fixed or predictable. "This cannot be," one scientist whispered. "They should follow a planetary cycle, a seasonal rhythm." "They do not," Ryan replied. "Humans are different. Our biology adapts to circumstances. Our love and choices influence our bodies." Avalria's eyes narrowed, her pride wounded. She could not allow a human to make her court believe that her species' understanding of life was incomplete. Yet the data spoke clearly. The patterns were human. unmistakable and unlike anything the Velastrans had studied. Interesting, she murmured, almost to herself. But theory is not enough. I demand a demonstration that shows this is not manipulation, not trickery. A true proof that humans can reproduce beyond cycles. Ryan considered her carefully. He knew she meant scientific proof, not anything personal. He began explaining how controlled observations on Earth had confirmed his claim. He described human families, long-term partnerships, and the emotional bonds that influenced biological responses. He spoke of love, care, and choice as factors that reshaped human life beyond what instinct dictated. For hours, the princess questioned him, her curiosity growing despite herself. She asked about mates, about how humans formed bonds, and why they sometimes ignored instinct. Ryan answered each question with patience, explaining concepts of emotion, memory, and social bonding. For a Velastran, these were strange, almost alien ideas. By night, the court chambers had emptied, leaving only the princess and Ryan. The hum of the ship was soft now, a lullaby of light and metal. She stared at him, a flicker of admiration in her eyes. You claim your species is bound by choice as much as nature. That is unthinkable, and yet your evidence is convincing. Perhaps humans are exceptional. Ryan smiled slightly. We are not perfect, but we are adaptable. We survive because we are willing to try, to choose, to learn. Avelria leaned back, pondering. She had been raised to believe that cycles and rules governed all life. Yet here was a human, small, fragile-looking, and yet full of knowledge and strength. He did not break nature through force. He transcended it through understanding and choice. Perhaps your kind is not limited by the laws we hold sacred, she said softly. Perhaps humans can achieve what we cannot. Ryan nodded. We evolve by choice, not only by instinct. That is why humans can survive anywhere, adapt to any challenge, and even form bonds that defy nature. The princess looked out through the great viewport, the stars stretching into infinity. Her mind was full of wonder and confusion. She had always been confident in the superiority of Velastra, but now she could not deny the marvel of humanity. Your species is remarkable, she admitted. Perhaps more remarkable than I ever imagined. Just then, a message arrived from the Emperor. Avelria's father had learned of the human presence and the discussions about human biology. The message was brief and cold. She must return to the palace immediately, and the human was to be detained until further notice. Avelria's pride flared at the command. She had seen enough to be fascinated, yet her duty demanded obedience. She turned to Ryan. It seems your demonstration is not complete. You will be detained for further examination. Ryan nodded calmly. He had expected this. I understand, he said. But the truth is already clear. Humans are unique. You will see it, even if your empire resists belief. The princess studied him, a strange expression crossing her face. She had never felt such a combination of admiration, frustration, and curiosity. Perhaps humans were more than she could comprehend. Perhaps their strength lay in the very things her empire considered weakness: choice, emotion, and adaptability. As he was escorted to a secure observation chamber, Avelria whispered quietly, almost to herself, Perhaps the human is right. Perhaps your kind is free, because you choose to be. The ship hummed softly, carrying both of them deeper into the darkness of space. Outside, the stars stretched on forever, but inside, the boundaries of knowledge and belief were being rewritten. Humanity had claimed a small victory, not with force, but with intelligence, curiosity, and the simple courage to be different. And Princess Avelria, for the first time, wondered if she had been wrong about the limits of life, and about the humans she had so eagerly doubted. Ryan Carter sat in the secure observation chamber, the cold metal walls pressing around him, but his mind was calm. He had faced many challenges on Earth, but nothing quite like this, being scrutinized by an entire alien empire for something as simple as the way humans lived and loved. Yet he knew the truth was on his side. Humans were not bound by rigid cycles. They could adapt, survive, and love on their own terms. That was his proof, and sooner or later, the Velastrans would have to see it. Late into the night, the soft hum of the royal vessel was interrupted by a quiet hiss. Avelria stepped into the chamber, her presence sudden and silent. She moved with the grace and authority of a queen, yet her eyes held something more: curiosity, doubt, and a touch of admiration. "Do you sleep, human?" she asked softly. Ryan shook his head, leaning back in his seat. Not tonight. I am preparing for what comes next. She tilted her head, studying him. And what is that? I will show them the truth, he said simply. They can run tests, scan our biology, measure every cycle, but the proof is in the data, and in the choice of humans to act beyond instinct. Avelria stepped closer, lowering her voice. I think I understand. You speak of love, of bonds, of freedom, things my people do not consider, and yet you live by them, you survive by them. Ryan smiled faintly. Exactly. Humans survive by choice, by intelligence, by connection. That is why we can adapt anywhere. That is why we can reproduce at any time, because it is not only biology, it is the heart, the mind, the willingness to live and bond. The princess's expression softened. For the first time, she saw him not as a curiosity, not as a subject, but as something remarkable. She had grown up believing that life could only exist within cycles, that deviation was impossible, and yet here was proof, staring her in the face. Together, they began to plan the public demonstration. Ryan knew it would be risky. The Velastran scientists and the Emperor himself had been briefed on the situation. Many would resist the truth simply because it challenged the foundation of their beliefs. But Avelria was determined. She wanted the proof to be undeniable. They began by preparing a genetic resonance scan, a complex procedure the Velastrans had developed to monitor reproductive cycles. Ryan explained how it worked in human terms, keeping the language simple. The idea was to show that humans did not follow a single cycle, but a flexible pattern influenced by social and emotional factors. The day of the demonstration arrived, and the throne room was filled with Velastran dignitaries, scientists, and advisors. The Emperor himself watched from the elevated dais, his expression unreadable. Avelria stood beside Ryan, her posture a mixture of pride and apprehension. Ryan activated the equipment. The scan began and the data appeared on the glowing panels. The room fell silent as the graphs and readings unfolded. The Velastran scientists leaned in, their eyes widening at the unexpected patterns. The cycles were not fixed. There were rises and falls, but no predictable rhythm. Humans were always capable, ready, and adaptable. This is impossible, whispered one of the elder scientists. They should have a fixed cycle. All species obey this rule. Ryan nodded. Humans are different. Our bodies respond to choice, emotion, and social bonds. That is why we are not bound by seasonal cycles. Avelria stepped forward, addressing the room. Her voice carried authority and clarity. This data is real. The human speaks the truth. Their species can reproduce at any time, not because they defy nature, but because they transcend it through choice and connection. A murmur spread through the crowd. Some scholars exchanged glances. Others shook their heads in disbelief. The Emperor leaned forward, his golden eyes narrowing. You claim this is true, Avelria? That humans can live and reproduce without cycles? Yes, Father, she replied firmly. The proof is before you. Observe the data, see the patterns. Humans are unique, and their strength lies not in following cycles, but in choosing how to live. The Emperor's expression hardened, but the evidence was undeniable. Even his most loyal scientists could not deny what they saw. He gestured for silence, and the room fell completely quiet. Then this human is extraordinary, the Emperor said finally. And if what you claim is true, Princess, then humanity possesses a trait unlike any species in this empire. A freedom. A power beyond our comprehension. Avelria looked at Ryan, her pride evident. She had defended him, risking her reputation and her standing, but it had been worth it. They are remarkable, she said quietly. And not just for biology, Father. For their intelligence, their choice, and their courage. The Emperor studied Ryan for a long moment. Then, with a slow nod, he said, You may go free, human. Your species has proven something extraordinary. Relief flooded Ryan, but he remained composed. He had expected the Emperor to resist, but the truth could not be denied. He stepped down from the platform, offering a respectful bow to the Velastran court. Avelria followed, her eyes meeting his with a warmth that spoke of respect and admiration. After the demonstration, the court began to disperse, and Ryan found himself walking beside Avelria in the quiet halls of the vessel. The hum of the ship was gentle, almost soothing as they talked. You have changed my understanding of life, she said softly. I always believed that cycles ruled all, that choice was secondary, but you have shown me that freedom, love, and connection can be stronger than instinct. Ryan smiled. It's not that humans are better, Princess. It's that we are different. And difference is what allows us to survive, to adapt, and to thrive. She looked at him, her golden eyes reflecting the distant stars outside the viewport. If your kind can love in any season, does that mean you could love across worlds too? Ryan met her gaze, feeling a sense of wonder. Perhaps that's what we're built for, he said. To reach across the stars, to connect with others, to find meaning beyond our own world. The princess nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. She reached into her pocket and produced a small earth flower, a gift Ryan had given her during their first meeting. She held it carefully as if it were a symbol of the truth he had shown her. This is yours, she said softly. A reminder that sometimes even the laws of life can be rewritten by the heart. Ryan took the flower, holding it gently, and a reminder that curiosity and courage can bridge the greatest distances. For the first time, the princess allowed herself to feel admiration, not for the human alone, but for the idea he represented. Humans were small, fragile, and seemingly ordinary, yet they carried a strength that no empire could ignore, the strength of choice, love, and connection. Days passed as the Velastran court adjusted to the revelation. Scholars debated the implications and young scientists whispered excitedly about the human species. Avalria found herself in quiet moments thinking of Ryan, of the courage and patience he had shown, and of the lessons he had shared. Finally, the day came for Ryan to depart. The royal vessel had carried him safely through the stars, but now it was time for him to return to Earth. He stood on the deck, looking out at the galaxy stretched before him, and felt a sense of accomplishment. Humans had been doubted, mocked, and underestimated, but their truth had shone through. Avelria approached him one last time, the flower clutched carefully in her hand. Promise me, she said quietly, that you will continue to show the galaxy what humans can do, that you will continue to prove that our understanding is not complete. Ryan smiled. I promise, Princess, and perhaps one day I will return, not just as a representative of Earth, but as a friend to your people as well. She nodded, her expression a mixture of pride, respect, and something more, curiosity, wonder, and the faintest hint of hope. Perhaps you will, she said softly. And perhaps in time, humanity will teach us more than we ever imagined. As his ship departed the royal vessel, leaving the stars behind, Ryan looked back one last time. The princess stood at the viewport holding the earth flower, her eyes following him into the distance. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown worlds and unknown creatures, but humans had proven that they could not only survive, they could inspire, teach, and transcend expectations. And Princess Avalria, for the first time, understood that there were limits in the universe, yes, but also possibilities that no cycle or law could contain. Humans were not bound by the rules of life as she knew them. They were free, and that freedom was a power unlike any other. The hum of the ship carried Ryan forward, and with it, the promise of new worlds, new discoveries, and the certainty that humanity, with its courage and choice, would continue to shine across the stars. The galaxy was watching, and humanity was ready.